What's going on, everybody? It's Wednesday. We are recording another off-season edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Nick Whalen, Joe Bartel hanging out with you. We are brought to you by Circa, and a reminder that the ultimate fantasy football draft can only take place in Las Vegas. Circa Resort and Casino wants to bring your whole league to Vegas with the ultimate fantasy football experience giveaway. The winner brings your 12-person league for a 2-night stay at Circa Resort, and you'll have your draft at a cabana down at Stadium Swim, plus limo transportation to and from the airport, a welcome party at the Legacy Club. Saw they just got a new entrance, by the way, Joe, at the Legacy Club. Looks great. You'll get a booth at the world's largest sports book and a whole lot more. Take it from us. We go to Circa every summer for the RotoWire trip. Love that place. There is no better place to draft than Circa. Got to be 21 or older. Go to circalasvegas.com for more information. I don't know if you and I are even eligible to win this, Joe, given our affiliation to Circa, but I would like to enter anyway, because that would be a ton of fun to bring the boys out there and do a draft down at Stadium Swim. All right, so we got a fun show here. We talked a lot of best ball last week. We'll work in a little bit of that, but I want to focus mostly on redraft, Joe, and I'm pulling up some ADP figures from the NFFC. Looking at the last 2.5 weeks or so, we've had 10 drafts go off. These are, of course, high stakes leagues, high buy-in. So I think, we'd like a larger sample, but, it's still a pretty good look as far as how boards are shaping up from people who are taking this seriously. And we're going to play a couple games here. One is, who would you rather draft? I'm going to give you two players with similar ADPs. You're going to tell me who you would rather take. And then I guess the second one's less of a game and more of a discussion on some big name veterans, guys who go inside the top 100, whether we're in or out on those veterans at cost. So I will give you the choice, Joe. Do you want to start talking veterans, or do you want to play who would you rather draft?
Yeah, and this is going to be a lot of cheating for me on the draft too, because while I love draft strategy and this or that's, to me, and this is perfectly kind of encapsulated, I would say, in the second round discussion that we had probably 2 weeks ago or somewhere of that degree. Yeah. I care far more about what are the running backs available, what are the receivers available in that same range. So I'm going to make you do extra work while I'm answering these questions and say, well, what is the positional tiers there? Because this really matters. I think this year, I think it really matters as part of this the conversation too. So I'll go with the first of those choices, Nick, but understand you're going to be doing extra legwork for this because I refuse to answer these in complete faith.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. As long as we get an answer out of you and you explain yourself, we will live with that. We're actually going to do neither of those things because we got a good question in the chat that I want to start off with. A dynasty question from Ryan. He says he's in a 10-team dynasty, wants to win now. Would you send Chris Olave, your favorite player in the NFL, Joe, for Derrick Henry? He says his other running backs are Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara, Breece Hall, and Ramondre Stevenson. Oh, I thought this said ETN, and Travis Etienne. So he's got Jacobs, Kamara, Hall, Ramondre, Etienne. Would you send Olave for Henry?
So it's a loaded running back group, right? And part of that is 10-team. I think you could have bought low on Jacobs even last year. That was one of the guys that we were touting quite a bit. At the moment, Breece Hall is relatively low. You could possibly buy low on that as well. I think on a 1-for-1, if we're saying redraft Chris Olave or Derrick Henry, well, that's no contest. I think it's Derrick Henry all the way. You look at their ADPs right now, it's probably a 3 or 4 round difference between the two where they're being drafted. This is not redraft, though. This is dynasty. And yet I think the question has to be answered a little bit as if redraft, because if you're looking at Olave, he's one concussion away from this being a non-starter. So you could say, well, yeah, okay, Derrick Henry, an hour before the show, signs this 2-year extension, gets paid $15 million per year in addition to what his current contract is. Well, Derrick Henry is only going to be around for the NFL in 3 years. You could make the same argument for Olave that he might only be around for 3 more years too. I don't think that's a fair way to look at it. But my answer is, am I making the other team significantly better by acquiring Derrick Henry? Because this is a 2-year window answer. If this team who's acquiring Derrick Henry now is in relation to me as a possible contender, I don't want to do that because there's a dramatic redraft downgrade in that equation. And you're also buying, I think, Olave at cost at that point, given the injury concerns I have. If this is somebody that would then flip Derrick Henry for other assets down the road, and it's a 10-team league, there's already shallow concerns, I think my answer is no, even though it's a fair offer. I don't know if I would do that, but I'm more worried about making another contender by sort of taking on this Olave deal and giving them a guy like Derrick Henry, who I think is top 10 running back again this year.
I think you might have misheard the question, Joe. He's acquiring Derrick Henry. He'd be sending out Chris Olave.
And his backs are Jacobs, Kamara, Breece, and no, I'm not doing that. you already have really good running backs in 3 or 4 of them. No, I would not choose to do that if that's the case. I apologize, but this is a good exercise for other people to play out too. Like in the reverse of this, I think that makes far more sense. I would not be acquiring Derrick Henry in this instance with the running backs he has.
I disagree. I'm low on Olave. I would do this. Maybe you could work a trade, offload one of those other running backs. I mean, obviously you like Jacobs. I'm a little iffy on Kamara. I'm iffy on the Saints in general. We'll see on Breece Hall. Maybe we'll talk about him a little bit later in the show, but we're split on this one. I think I would do it. I would go all in. I think we get another really good year out of Derrick Henry. And if your focus is on winning your league this season, I want Derrick Henry on my roster. And I like what you said at the beginning of that answer, which was, it's not like you're giving up. I don't know. Who's a player going in a similar range? Jordan Addison. You're not giving up somebody where I think, in my mind, 2 or 3 years from now, you'll look back and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I made that deal." Like, there's a real possibility that the concussion stuff catches up to Olave in a major way. And like, when's the next time that we're going to feel great about the Saints offense in general? So I would take this deal. Joe says,
can we do a Jordan Addison conversation too? Because it's really interesting. You mentioned that name.
We will.
Okay, not that you're trying to, but that's a really compelling dynasty one as well too. You're right. In a vacuum, Derrick Henry is going to help you win your league this year. I completely get that.
Right.
Nick, maybe Travis Kelce could help you win your league too, if you just consider that a bit more further. But yeah, no, I love these conversations because I'm not sure there is a right or wrong answer, and that we're split on this. It really kind of clearly defines that it's a worthwhile question.
All right. So you said you want to play who would you rather draft first.
Yes.
We will do that. And I will not even go in chronological order because you want to talk about this guy. Who would you rather draft for this season in a redraft league? Jaylen Waddle or Jordan Addison? These guys have almost the exact same ADP. If you look at the last 3 weeks at the NFFC, they are both going around pick 70.
Okay. So let's break this down in their situations. Dolphins offense is one concussion away from being completely negligible, and you can't use anybody, whether it be Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle. I guess you can use Jonnu Smith, but that's from the tight end position. Davante Adams got a benefit from that. I love Davante Adams. That's a joke for listeners because I don't, but that's not one of those situations that makes sense. One injury away. If you're the Vikings, you're one Justin Jefferson injury away from Jordan Addison being a significantly more valuable target, but that doesn't necessarily have to occur. And then when that happens, you're having theoretical possibility where he's below a Jaylen Waddle. I love that those are both together. I would rather take Jaylen Waddle right now. And I say right now, Nick, because on May 14th, as we're doing this podcast, I wouldn't be shocked if Jaylen Waddle's on a different team entering this training camp. There are a number of teams that could use an additional receiver. The Steelers have been sniffing around some of the Packer guys, for example. We just saw a George Pickens trade from a couple of weeks ago. There are probably 3 or 4 teams I thought leaving the draft had obvious receiver needs, and we know the Dolphins are ready for a teardown. They've been offering Jalen Ramsey for basically anything, it feels like at this point, and there hasn't been any taker. I sort of wonder if that's the ramification of this, or the fallout from the Dolphins, is that a Jaylen Waddle move happens. And I don't mind speculating on that possibility because there are a number of teams where he goes to, he has significantly more fantasy value. There isn't a scenario in my mind where Jordan Addison significantly jumps up above that tier. So I'll take Jaylen Waddle at this moment, May 14th, with the assumption he could be on a different team before NFL training camp kicks off.
How much do the quarterbacks for each team matter to you? I'm not a Tua guy. We have nothing on McCarthy yet. It totally depends on your evaluation. It depends on how much, if at all, you think the injury impacts how he'll look in year one. I mean, that's the big question mark here, is that my mind, Jordan Addison had undoubtedly better quarterback play last season, of course, with Sam Darnold compared to Tua. But when you're comparing sight unseen JJ McCarthy to Tua, that becomes a tougher evaluation.
I didn't like JJ McCarthy entering last year. I would still take Cam Ward over him right now, which might be controversial. Kevin O'Connell is a really, really good coach. I think if he's not top 3, he's top 5, and I'm not going to really debate where that looks like, but I think he's comfortably among the NFL's elite as a coach. I still have a lot of shares of Mike McDaniel as a head coach, though, too, and certainly as an offensive mind. And I refuse to believe that he looked at this Dolphins offense last year and said, yeah, that's good enough to just repeat, do the same thing. And if everyone stays healthy, we'll be fine. Everyone in the Dynasty community will act like that's the case. And that's asinine in my mind. I don't believe Mike McDaniel is that stupid to think, man, a league average offense that can't beat any of these good teams for 3 consecutive years is something that we run back. So I believe that they're going to find a way to get Jaylen Waddle more involved. I mean, this is more, in my mind, an answer to what you believe Jaylen Waddle is talent-wise. but you cannot repeat last year and just expect things. He'll be fired if the Dolphins have a similar result from last year. So I assume things are going to change, and I believe in Mike McDaniel. So I'm taking Jaylen Waddle on that side.
Okay, I got two more receivers for you looking higher up the board. Who would you rather draft? These are guys who go maybe end of round 2, early round 3, ADPs hanging around 28. Jaxon Smith-Njigba or Garrett Wilson?
Thank you. Thank you, Nick, for giving me these softball answers. Neither. I'm answering neither. I'm already cheating on this question. Nick, if I have a late second round pick, that means I have an early first round pick. And I will never, ever this year find myself in a spot where I need to take JSN, Garrett Wilson, Ladd McConkey, whoever else you want to throw into that equation. I will not do it. You want to know how I will not do that, Nick? Because I can look. I have eyes, and I see what the ADP is at the back end of the second round, and I will not put myself in a position where I feel like I have to take in a late second round, early third round receiver, which means that I will 100% of the time take Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson with one of my early first round picks. There's not a scenario where I'm putting myself in that spot. I don't like Davante Adams. I will take Davante Adams over every one of these receivers that happens late second, early third round. I'll take Josh Jacobs. I'll take Derrick Henry. I'll take Kyron Williams. I want my running backs to come from that spot. And I will not be in a scenario where I'm walking into Garrett Wilson or Jason. I will not.
Well, let's say you have the first pick. So your second pick is 24, and then you're picking again after that, if we're not in a third round reversal league. So even if we're talking early third, still no?
Yeah. The running back depth that is there at the back end of the second, early third round, I will not. I absolutely refuse to be gaslit into taking the absolute peak of JSN or Ladd McConkey.
Okay.
Garrett Wilson's not quite that range. And this is, I'm really adamant about this, Nick, not so much that I think it's wrong or I think those players are bad. I don't want to be miscast in doing that. You're drafting Ladd McConkey or JSN at their absolute peak. This feels like a repeat of the Marvin Harrison thing from last year. What more are you expecting from these guys to do? And I know Ladd McConkey wasn't in this answer. It's a Garrett Wilson thing, which is a different intrigue in itself. But I know what I have in Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb, and it might be controversial, but I'll take one of those guys number one overall, knowing what's coming back for me at the running back spot here in that 2-3 turn.
All right, I got two more receivers for you. We're talking now end of the 5th round, perhaps early 6th. Average ADP for both of these players sitting around 63. Would you rather draft Jameson Williams or Jerry Jeudy?
Oh, this is a great one. Your first and third were great questions, Nick. I've refused to allow that second question to be a positive one. I will not compliment you this whole time. This is a well, if this was in best ball, it's a non-starter. I'll just take Jameson Williams, but we don't get to do that. We don't do this on the show where we allow the cutout answer for a best ball. I think I'm leading Jerry Jeudy on this, and it's for a couple of reasons.
Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett's the New Orleans Saints quarterback. I'm not sure what you're talking about with the Cleveland Browns. That's a Kellen Moore guy, right? The Browns can't keep him because they have both Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. You're probably not cutting Joe Flacco because you're not getting a trade value. So I think Kenny Pickett gets traded or cut, and he'll go to the Saints. So no, he's not that answer. We had this conversation on SiriusXM with you and Jeff yesterday. There is ample evidence, if you are an elite receiver in the NFL, that you will supersede bad quarterback play. I had mentioned Amari Cooper 2 years ago with Jacoby Brissett with the Browns, Drake London with Desmond Ridder. You can go on and on, I think, over recent years, that in the year 2025, the way passing offense is, if you are a great receiver, you can overcome bad quarterback play in a fantasy level. Do we think Jerry Jeudy is a great receiver? That's what this comes down to in my mind.
Yes.
I don't believe Jerry Jeudy is at that same tier as Amari Cooper or Drake London, but that might be controversial because when Jerry Jeudy was a rookie, it was Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb. And I remember answering to my friends, oh, it's 1A or 1B. I can't go wrong. Of course, the answer ended up being Justin Jefferson, who I liked a lot, not more than Jeudy or Lamb. But the answer was, oh, all of them are fine. I have a lot of reservations about a Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders situation for Jerry Jeudy. If it's Flacco, less so. But I think the way Kevin Stefanski wants to play and wants to win football games for the Cleveland Browns, and they are going to try to win, whether they will do so successfully is a different matter. They're going to run the ball a lot, and it's letting their defense win football games. And in that scenario, I don't think Jerry Jeudy's compiling a whole lot of yards and touchdowns to really be fantasy relevant. But I have real concerns about what a Ben Johnson less Lions offense looks like with Jameson Williams. I know what St. Brown's going to do. I think Laporte is going to get more work. I think Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery will eventually get more work. It's the unconventional stuff with Jameson Williams that is a positive for the Lions. You're not going to have Jameson Williams throw back-breaking INTs in the playoffs. But I also think he gets used less uniquely, and that's to his detriment. So I'm answering Jerry Jeudy in redraft. In best ball, I'm answering Jameson Williams.
Okay, we'll accept that. The board accepts your decision. I think that was a good breakdown. Let's go to a couple of running backs. We've started with all these receivers. These guys are also back-to-back in ADP. They actually come right after Jameson Williams and Jerry Jeudy. So we're talking about picks, somewhere between 60 and 67, we'll say in most drafts, average ADP of 64. Kaleb Johnson, rookie running back for the Steelers, or the complete opposite, veteran David Montgomery for the Detroit Lions. Who would you rather draft?
So this goes to what we were having the discussion earlier. I want to be clear. I would rather have both those guys than the Jameson Williams, Jerry Jeudy level of receivers.
Sure.
I think the way I'm going to build my roster, I'm going to get a receiver in that first round, theoretically. And my running back 2 is going to come from this group. So if I load a receiver in the 3rd or 4th round, that's fine. I love everyone in this tier. And you could, I think, expand it further to James Conner, to Aaron Jones, to Joe Mixon. I think Quinshon Judkins has evolved past that tier. I think RJ Harvey is slightly above that tier as well, too. But for a little bit in best ball, at least, that was kind of all grouped similarly.
I will say, for what it's worth, Judkins is going about a round later.
Later than Kaleb Johnson?
Yeah, Kaleb Johnson, ADP 63.9, Judkins 75.2.
Okay, well, man. We love our friends at the NFFC. We might need to get a few more free rolls, or frankly, I might just need to be paying up at this point, because this is a prime tier. I was talking about Chris Olave in the show on SiriusXM yesterday that I want to capitalize best ball if his value falls. I love Judkins in round 7. That's not right. That won't be the way it occurs in early to late August. The answer to this, who are we drafting, David Montgomery or Kaleb Johnson? I am going to take Kaleb Johnson out of this group. I mentioned my pessimism of the Ben Johnson less Lions. Mm-hmm. I don't think that really impacts David Montgomery all that much, but he is coming off a serious injury. Jahmyr Gibbs kind of revitalized that offense in the second half of the season. It would be totally fine if the answer was, hey, to make up for Ben Johnson's brilliance being absent, what if we just get the guy that's most explosive to the ball a little bit more? What if Jahmyr Gibbs, who averages like 18 touches per game, gets like 22 or 23? Nothing wrong with that in my mind. I think that would make the Lions better. I think they'll be a better football team if Jahmyr Gibbs does get to be more involved. Now, maybe not at the end of the season. That's a different answer. I really believe in Kaleb Johnson. I think that actually might be a hot take for this question. I think most people could eventually answer David Montgomery. I think Kaleb Johnson can be a 3-down workhorse. I think he could be a receiving back. He doesn't have to be with Jalen Moore in there. But I also think the Steelers, and this is very much provided they have Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback, I think the Steelers are going to be a good enough offense that you're getting close to 6 to 7, 6 to 8 touchdowns in the red zone for Kaleb Johnson. And that's all you need for that fantasy value to make do, especially if he gets a certain volume that you're expecting. I know it's a 3rd round draft capital. Don't look at it that way. Think about this is the 4th or 5th best running back in a loaded running back class that goes to a team that needs another running back to fit that Kaleb Johnson mold. I think Kaleb Johnson's the answer.
All right. I already know you're going to absolutely hate this one, Joe, and you're going to tell me that you're not taking any of these players, but okay. Too all bad. Right. You're going to have to make a choice. So these are all quarterbacks who are going on average between pick 80 and 84. Yeah. Would you rather draft Caleb Williams, Jared Goff, or Kyler Murray?
I'm glad Baker Mayfield wasn't thrown into that one too. I've had this conundrum from best ball already a little bit. You're right. My answer is I don't want to do anything to do with this group. If I am punting at running back and receiver to the degree that we've mentioned before in the show, you're sort of necessitated to take dart throws at running back and receiver in this range. So that's partly why I just won't be taking any quarterback. But for the fun of this answer, and I think this is actually a really compelling one, it's tricky because Kyler Murray gets the rushing floor aspect that you're like, all right, safety net wise, even if I don't think he's a good quarterback in the NFL, or at least an elite quarterback, fantasy wise, he'll be fine. And then you're kind of speculating, where's Bo Nix in this range too? Because he also is kind of, I would imagine, in the NFFC group in that conversation, right?
I think so. I think so. Let me pull up his ADP.
I mean, while you're doing that for the listeners,
he's a little bit higher
in the NFFC, and this is gonna be wild. I'll answer for you. It's 6 points per passing touchdown, and right. I think Bo Nix would be conventionally assumed to be the one of this group that throws the most touchdowns and has the rushing floor. But if they're all
he's a full
together,
round ahead.
Okay, is it okay if we add him to this mix? Because I think for what Bo Nix will do, and I'm not a Bo Nix guy at all, but for this scoring system for the NFFC with the rushing production that he gives and 6 points per passing touchdown, I will pay the extra round premium over a lot of these guys. I think Kyler Murray has a rushing floor, but not nearly as much touchdown upside. Baker Mayfield becomes in that equation too. He's not going to throw nearly as many touchdowns as well. Caleb Williams is one I like to speculate on positively, but you still need to see it. It feels a little bit like Dwight Howard, Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, Lakers. Oh my God, that trio is going to be so good, Nick. ESPN couldn't stop. I'm going to use other words. Stop talking about them, and yet they weren't nearly as good. It wasn't appropriate to say what ESPN was doing.
I have a feeling where you were going.
Yes, and yet that never really materialized. And okay, well the Bears, if they got Luther Bird, and this is excess amount of excess, and they made so many great trades for offensive linemen. All this is happening. I think that did happen. Let's see it on the football field. Let's actually see this in practice and occur that way. I get a little bit nervous in that regard too. And the other quarterback, I apologize. I've now just completely blanked. Who is in this range too?
So the original question before
I added on,
before it was decided that Bo Nix was a part of it was Caleb Williams, Jared Goff, or Kyler Murray.
Jared Goff, yeah. Jared Goff is the other one. I think Caleb Williams, Jared Goff, they're in that same skepticism I have. I would answer Jared Goff though, because I would be concerned that the Lions will need to score more points this year and be competitive and relevant. We'll see the second half of the season, Jared Goff kind of play out most of this year. Boy, now that I'm thinking about it, it might be Caleb Williams. I'm going to cheat again. It's Bo Nix. I'll take the round premium. I don't care that you're not allowing that to happen. I'm taking Bo Nix every time of this 4 group.
All right, well, let's say you don't go Bo Nix and you don't go early quarterback and you don't like this tier of 3 that I just gave you. At what point are you taking your quarterback if you are doing a wait on quarterback strategy? Are you shopping in the Herbert, Stroud, Purdy, May zone? Are you going even lower?
Is Love in that group too?
Jordan Love is about a half round behind. Yeah, but we'll say he's in that group.
So is Kyler Murray quarterback 11?
Quarterback 11. Yep.
Look, I'm so good at this. That's my one superpower. If you're wondering, I can just randomly guess numbers and it applies very well. I would assume my quarterback is either going to be quarterback 5 through 7 range, and I don't really want to do quarterback 7.
Okay.
Or more conventionally, it'll be quarterback 11 or 12, 14. Like that's gonna be where, because I like Jordan Love enough in NFFC. I think the passing points production, Justin Herbert's fine. I've had arguments with my friends about CJ Stroud. I've not sold any shares whatsoever. I think the new offensive scheme I'm going to be totally fine with.
Yep.
If Tua, even as like a quarterback 1, I don't hate it for the ADP cost. It'd be the same way that we did with Jared Goff last year, right? And that ended up being completely proven true. Baker Mayfield was one of those that you're drafting as like quarterback 18 that proves fine. It's too deep of a position, and the difference of that second tier of quarterbacks is not much different than I think quarterback 3 or 4. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this, Tua. So we're talking about a 10 draft sample again, last 3 weeks over at the NFFC. So take that for what it's worth. Tua was undrafted in 4 of those 10 drafts. Like Cam Ward, Bryce Young, Matthew Stafford, Anthony Richardson, Michael Penix were all taken in more of those drafts.
Well, and like Dak Prescott, I bet you, I don't think it goes undrafted, but it's the same concept as well too. Like if Dak's healthy, he's going to be producing a top 15 quarterback, right? I mean, and you could get him pretty conventionally later on. That's just the rookie mindset with those NFFC, not that they're rookies drafting,
right?
But that you're just like, oh, I've heard about these guys more. It's on my mind. I'll take Cam Ward there. No, I'm going to have my quarterback in that Josh Allen through Jaden Daniels tier more often than not. And it's because I'm fading a lot of the running backs and receivers in that range. I can do so.
Yeah.
But I don't mind taking a quarterback as my starter, whether it be Jordan Love or that group. I have zero issue with that.
All right. Last thing on this one, and then we'll get to our final. Who would you rather draft? Should Trevor Lawrence be going 45 picks after Caleb Williams?
No. That's another great one. And I know I'm talking to the Jags fan here, so I'm preaching to the choir. Liam Cohen's made offenses really, really good. They invested in Travis Hunter to the degree that he has to be a receiver out there. I don't even mind Diami Brown as like a signing as well too, as a wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
No, it 1 year, 10 million sounds a lot. Or like it seems like it's a lot for a guy that hasn't really done a lot. Tutu Atwell's the same way. Josh Palmer was the same way. There's been enough receivers that were paid to that degree that I love him as wide receiver 3. I think he makes an offense better. So I will absolutely buy any shares of Trevor Lawrence that I can in Dynasty. I think he's going far too cheap. And in a redraft, this is a best ball answer. I'm going to have like a 15% diversity on all these QBs because I think every one of them has a chance to be a Baker Mayfield of this past year.
All right, let's get to our final. Who would you rather draft? I don't know. My voice just temporarily went out there for a second. I'm not using my regular water bottle, Joe. I had to use this like girl one because I lost it.
I was literally going to say that's one that my wife definitely has. Yeah, right. It is.
Yeah, I was trying not to show it on camera, but we're getting to the point where I just got to take a sip. All right, last one. George Pickens or Deebo Samuel?
Yeah, it's George Pickens. I recognize that this could be a complete disaster for George Pickens and the Cowboys. The history of Steelers receivers to be traded and then what happens after when they go to their new teams is unprecedented in terms of just how many times Mike Tomlin and company have got that correct. I don't think there's really a miss at all in that group. It doesn't need to be a complete combustion for me to say that George Pickens still with CeeDee Lamb as like the alpha receiver in that offense can be a 900-yard to 1,000-yard receiver, 7 touchdowns, and everything goes still wrong for George Pickens and the Cowboys. Like that can be viewed negatively. We could do this conversation May 14th of 2026 and be like, man, it was dumb for the Cowboys to give up a 3rd-round pick for that production. Because the Cowboys could still lose football games. You could have George Pickens making a fool of himself or the Cowboys at various points. I think he could produce at that level. I'm very concerned that Deebo Samuel is going to be viewed much how we view Cooper Kupp with the Seahawks this year. Like, oh yeah, remember that one year that Deebo played for the Commanders? Yeah, that's right. As he continues his tour to the Ravens the next year, and then we'll play the Saints his final year before he ends up retiring at 30. Like the injury concerns for Deebo are real. Now I want to make it clear. I'm blanking on the actual illness that he had last season. Maybe you could help me fill that, but like that's like a long-term thing. No.
It's pneumonia, right?
Yeah. Pneumonia is not like this cold or flu thing. Like if you have pneumonia, you're dealing with that for at least 6 months, even if you're an elite athlete. So to say Deebo just was awful last year, and we're just like kind of writing that off, that's not fair to pneumonia at all. But Deebo's been injured for a lot of his career, and especially lately. And to go to a new offensive scheme that I think will still have Terry McLaurin involved heavily, that still wants to use the Austin Eckler sort of role, has Brian Robinson and Jaden Daniels doing rushing quarterback stuff. No, I want no business of Deebo Samuel. I don't think there's any scenario where he makes good in his value significantly. I will take George Pickens every time.
All right, let's talk some veterans, Joe. There'll be no frills here, no fluff. Just want to get your opinion on a few veteran players. Are you in or are you out at current ADP? We'll start with an old friend of yours, Davante Adams, right now going on average about pick 39 in the NFFC. So that puts him just after Marvin Harrison and right in the same zone as Mike Evans and DJ Moore. Are you in or out at that price?
Yeah, they do call me Joe Bartel, frills and fluff. So this is going to be really tough for me to try to avoid that. Yeah, that one might not be a good one. I am totally fine with Davante Adams as like I want shares of, but I'm not going out of my way to aggressively acquire him over other players. We had this conversation literally today with Marvin Harrison. By all accounts, last year was a disappointing year for Marvin Harrison, but if you look at the production, it really wasn't. It's just the Cardinals used him really dumb. I think it was a very stupid way to use Marvin Harrison. The problem is they've just doubled down on that. They didn't do anything else to allow Marvin Harrison to be a target hog. Like he's going to have to still be the speed deep threat option in an offense that wasn't very successful last year. They didn't do anything this offseason to tell me that they're going to change it. So I like Davante Adams with Matthew Stafford. I like Davante Adams with an offensive mind that will get him the ball a lot. But this is still a scheme I'm saying is revolving around Puka Nacua being a target hog as well too. And it's not a guarantee that Davante Adams just fits in seamlessly, even though I like all the pieces around it. So I would probably try to diversify. I don't think there's one I like more than the other. I don't mind DJ Moore at all either. I think DJ Moore is going to be conventionally assumed to be the lowest of that trio, and he shouldn't. I think DJ Moore is going to be used a lot like Amon-Ra St. Brown was. If we're saying somebody has to be the St. Brown, Ben Johnson role, that's DJ Moore. But I kind of want to just have as many shares of those three as possible. Okay. I don't want to try to claim ownership of one over the other.
Okay. How about the other guy I mentioned right after Davante? Basically the same ADP, Mike Evans.
I will probably have more Mike Evans of that group than anyone. Like if I'm saying Joe Bartel's going to put flag plan at one, it's Mike Evans. I know the offensive coordinator has changed. Baker Mayfield has played good enough. He certainly has a chemistry with Mike Evans. And I know the age cliff thing is going to happen. Don't really care. I think he's a red zone guy. I think the Buccaneers are going to score a lot of points. Their defense still isn't very good. Mike Evans is probably the one I draft of that group over anybody else.
Mike Evans is going to be 32 in August. That we're getting to that point, man. And nobody has been as consistent as Mike Evans. Very few players in NFL history have matched this level of production. We don't see this in the NFL really, like load managing or anything like that. But I do feel like the Ibuka pick in some ways was a succession plan, right? And look, it's not like we're going to have Mike Evans play in the first half only and like, hey, we're limiting your minutes. Like that's not going to happen. But I think they're preparing for that cliff because they know it could come this year.
I think Ibuka is far more of the protection to Chris Godwin, who is no guarantee that he'll be back and healthy from a very serious ankle injury at the start of week one. Jaylen McMillan is more conventionally an outside receiver. And while they look nothing alike, I would assume Jaylen McMillan is probably more of the Mike Evans insurance. And we've seen smart teams, good teams do this. We had this conversation off there, but what Jaden Higgins is in insurance, Nico Collins, is the correct way to do things for the Texans. Jalen Knowles, same thing for Christian Kirk. Like that is the way you should be doing things and building your team. And I like that concept. I think Ibuka is more conventionally going to be the insurance to Chris Godwin, not Mike Evans.
Mm-hmm. All right. How about Joe Mixon? Somebody we've talked about a decent amount over these last few weeks on this show. So he's going on average, again, last 10 drafts at the NFFC, pick 45. So that places him about a half round behind James Cook, closer to a full round behind Breece Hall, and right in the same zone as guys like Chuba Hubbard. And then you get into Omarion Hampton, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker.
So he's ahead of those guys. That's really interesting. I like Joe Mixon a lot. If this is our RotoWire Stake League auction, I would imagine Joe Mixon, if he's not in that Omarion Hampton price tag, might even be a little bit cheaper. And in that case, I'll buy Joe Mixon every time. I have no issues with Joe Mixon. I don't want to take him ahead of that group though. And I think there's probably more draft value and capital that I could find later on if I'm waiting. So I guess I might be out on NFFC Joe Mixon price tag. For what it's worth in underdog best ball, he's more of that 6th round Aaron Jones, James Conner category. And I'll take him above that crew just about every time. I like Woody Marks as a backup. We talked about him either last podcast or 2 podcasts ago. And I like the idea of having a safety net from that backfield.
Yep.
I don't think the Texans, first half Joe Mixon last year was fantastic and then kind of fell off towards the end. That was overall, in my mind, a cumulative. This Texans offense isn't good and Joe Mixon is held down because of that. But the change offensive coordinator wise is going to make the passing attack better. I'm convinced of that. I might be wrong. That could be a Joe has egg in his face after the fact. But if CJ Stroud is better as a passer, then that means Joe Mixon isn't as good of a runner. And that's where I would rather have a lot of these guys a little bit later on.
There's no way it's going to look as bad as it did last year. I'm with you on right. I'm with you on the Texans offense resurrection. What if we just put this to a bonus? Who would you rather draft, Mixon or Hubbard?
I would rather have Chuba Hubbard.
Okay.
Yep. I think that's no Jonathan Brooks. He was placed on the PUP list earlier this weekend, which means for those who aren't following along or seeing those Chef reports, Jonathan Brooks will not play at all this season. They signed Rico Dowdle, not that that matters much to me, but there is depth to that backfield. Chuba Hubbard is a 3-down ball carrier. The offense theoretically is going to be better. I'm not a huge Bryce Young guy, but that's conventionally what everyone assumes. I would much rather have Chuba Hubbard.
All right. How about Alvin Kamara, Joe, another veteran going right around pick 50. So as we mentioned, it's kind of a take your pick between Omarion Hampton, Alvin Kamara, and Kenneth Walker. All basically have the same ADP at the NFFC. James Conner goes about 7 or 8 picks later. Then you get into RJ Harvey and a little bit further down, Kaleb Johnson, David Montgomery. In or out on Kamara? I feel like this is a guy that you somewhat have to flag plan, and maybe it reflects more so your opinion on the Saints offense in general. Another guy with the age cliff potentially coming. They did sign him to an extension, which which I thought was strange, given where they sit as a team last year. But I will say, I have not had much Kamara. I don't think I had a single Kamara share last year. There were definitely times I regretted it. Like it's almost like I make these terrible cross-sport comparisons, a little like James Harden in fantasy hoops, where you're like, this is probably the year he regresses, and it hasn't happened yet. So is this the year that maybe you're off Kamara?
I would rather have Hampton, and I would think I'd rather have Kenneth Walker because I can get Zach Charbonnet later, and that's attractive to me to have the Seahawks backfield. But I'm certainly not off Kamara, and I'm not really fading him in that regard. I would love to know what the ADP of the next 10 drafts is with this Derek Carr retirement thing, because I think it's going to negatively impact Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and I think it's also going to negatively impact Kamara. And if it's now Kamara in that Aaron Jones tier of running backs, or even past Judkins or Harvey, I would like to buy a lot of that, because I feel very comfortable saying, whether it be Tyler Shuck, Kenny Pickett, Jameis Winston, doesn't matter. The Saints are going to use Alvin Kamara quite a bit and very frequently. And I can also get Devin Neal is one of my last picks too. And I think Devin Neal is a really, really good backup. And I know we had this conversation about Kendrick Miller during his career. That's fine. I know he's been replaced in that facet. I don't want to sell on Alvin Kamara. It's just more reinforcing the point that, my God, running back 2 for everybody should be really stacked, and that you could capitalize on this quite heavily, I think.
Right. All right. I got 2 more for you, Joe, and then we'll get out of here. Another running back. We're on a run right now. Aaron Jones going on average about pick 77 in those last 10 drafts at the NFFC. That puts him right behind Tony Pollard, right behind Quinshon Judkins. Then we get a decent gulf down to the next running backs, DeAndre Swift, Tyrone Tracy, Isaiah Pacheco. Yes. So kind of a cliff there after Aaron Jones.
Right. And I want to buy before that cliff hits. So I'll buy the Aaron Jones and then everything else afterwards.
Yeah.
I desperately want to avoid. Basically, I want to have my running back 4 be of this group. And that might be like too much invested, but I feel very comfortable with what this gives me. If we're saying what rank those 2, I want Judkins over Aaron Jones, but I want Aaron Jones over Tony Pollard. I'm sorry. I want Judkins over Tony Pollard and Aaron Jones, and then Pollard over Aaron Jones too. There's injury concerns with Aaron Jones. There was with the Packers, even at points last season. I think the Jordan Mason trade went underreported this offseason. The Vikings entered the NFL draft with the second fewest picks, and then still gave up Jordan a pick of crucial value, I think, given the roster build, to make sure that they are insured from a backup perspective, despite this being a loaded running back class. Mm-hmm. I want as many shares of Kevin O'Connell as I can get. I guess Jaylen Waddle notwithstanding, because we had the Jordan Addison conversation. But Aaron Jones's injury concerns really, they're there. They're present. They're real. And I like Jordan Mason as a backup. So I would probably fade him of that group. I don't know what to make about the Tony Pollard thing. Like that's weird. But I definitely want Judkins above both.
All right, let's finish out with a wide receiver. You knew he was going to come up, Joe. The ultimate veteran, Cooper Kupp, ADP of 90 right now at the NFFC. So he's in the same zone as Ricky Pearsall, Khalil Shakir, Stephon Diggs, and Jaden Reed's going about closer to a round later, 8-9 picks later. Cooper Kupp around pick 90. What say you?
Out. I'm out on that one altogether. I like Khalil Shakir of that group. I think I even like Stephon Diggs in that group. I think I'll buy Jaden Reed as well. That one's a little bit tougher. I know the smart football people all like the Seahawks and have for a number of years. To me, the Seahawks have kind of maxed out, and we'll do this cross-sport thing again, as like in Orlando Magic, they'll always be a 6-7 seed, but nothing more. I know Ben Caro is kind of changing that process a little bit more for them, but they're just never that team that actually feels like they're threatening. And that's what the Seahawks are to me too. Whether it be the Cooper Kupp part of this, like MVS is going to have to be a factor this year after the trades they've made at receiver and releasing Tyler Lockett. And then there's Sam Darnold, who you have to be a little bit concerned that he'll turn back to a pumpkin. I mean, that's, of course, that's a fair, I don't know if he will, but if Sam Darnold's quarterback 25 in the NFL, does that mean Cooper Kupp ends up being outside of this range? Yes, I think is very comfortably the answer. So I don't think nearly the receivers that you listed in that group have as many concerns and questions. And that's not even saying Cooper Kupp stays healthy, which has been a major issue for his career too. So I'm no on Cooper Kupp at that ADP.
Okay. Bonus question. Seahawks win total is 8.5 right now. Do you lean under?
I do. I leaned under on the Vikings win total last year, and I was incredibly and foolishly wrong. We might need to ask Jake Latarski that question, because we do this over under on the win total on our podcast at the beginning of August, he only had 3 wrong. All of last year. Of the 32 win total, he only had 3 wrong. So I would default to Jake. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. We need to have more publicity about that, I think, from RotoWire. I don't know if Jake can be that hot again, but I would sooner lean the under. I think the NFC West is going to be a 2-team race, and it might just be a 1-team race with the Rams. We'll have to see what the Niners do. But no, I would take the under at 8.5.
All right. There we have it, Joe. Fun stuff, man. Appreciate you allowing me to just pepper you with questions for the last 40 minutes. But we'll play more of these games, a little more.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll sprinkle this in. Still got several months until real football is played. But we do get the NFL schedule released tonight. We'll talk about that next week and keep finding ways to, get some content out of this early season. Got to start hopping in more best balls. We got some expert drafts coming up in the next couple of months. So we'll keep putting these out every single week. We'll still have John and Mario doing episodes. If you're listening to this in podcast form, go check us out over on the RotoWire YouTube channel. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you see it on your screen right now. Go to rotowire.com, put in that code ROTO15, 15% off any of our subscription products over at rotowire.com.